When I look at development today, there are three massive challenges that everybody is talking about. And the first is jobs. The second is what are prospects for young people who seem to be really quite dissatisfied across the world. And the third is inequality. And really when people say, well, how are we going to address all of these three things? The answer turns out to be the same. It's education.
Many of our children are going to school. And this has been the story for the last 50 years we have had independence. They go to school because there's a belief that parents have, a belief that families have, that going to school gives them the skills and competencies that they need.
The thinking was that, okay, if we build enough schools, if we have enough teachers, if we have enough teaching learning material in classrooms, then this fuzzy thing called learning will kind of happen.
We began to really feel this invisible problem, which was the fact that children are in school, attending fairly regularly, but really not at the level that they need to be. So I would say that we have a learning crisis.
But it was very hard to make that case and get policymakers to pay attention because we didn't have data. We didn't have evidence.
They invented this tool of household-based, very lightweight evaluations. You don't take a lot of people's time, you don't take a lot of organizations. You can do it in remote districts using volunteers.
How does the assessment work? What we do is we pick a district. India has more than 600 districts. So we go to every district in the country. We identify, and sometimes people identify us, a local organization or an institution or a college or an NGO. And what they do is they go to a sample of villages in the district. And in the villages, you sample kids. There's a process that we use.
I am 6 years old. My school is
when you go into a household, you're testing all kids. You're not just testing the kids who happen to be in school on that particular day. That's a big advantage because in many of the contexts that we're talking about in developing countries, not all kids go to school.
There's a lot of really sophisticated technical work on how to properly assess learning. And you have many different methods depending on the different type of assessment. And some, like national exams, assess every kid, right, who gets to a certain level. Others, such as international tests that compare results of different countries, just takes a sample, a randomized sample to make sure it's representative. The thing not many people necessarily know about the citizen-led assessment piece is what a broad scale it's done under.
By being able to go to every single district of the country, and in every single district going to 30 enumeration areas or 30 villages, what it allows you to do is to, in a sense, engage the whole country.
Citizen-led assessments play an important part in that accountability in the sense that they are a little bit separate from the system. They are an independent voice that marshals citizens to actually collect the information to then reflect on the citizens themselves.
Now, if you're the Minister for Education, if you're the Minister for Finance, making decisions around how do I allocate my money, how do I ensure accountability, this data is incredibly useful because it allows you to zero in and focus on where there are problems.
It's all becoming more and more valuable over time as we get more countries, we get more benchmarks, we get more years. So I think that this is something which is building, and it's certainly helped move the needle to say that we can actually get measures and statistics on learning outcomes.
The post-2015 education framework must have learning in it because I think it is no longer sufficient just to go to school.
The focus will be much more on learning, and which in turn will generate a demand for learning metrics, and that will hopefully also boost and give encouragement to these citizen assessments that will then spread even further so that we'll get a dynamic of really building this movement across the world.
And today I think the different efforts in the different countries together reach more than 1 million children a year. And it's really amazing how simple things can go really far.
So as we move into the future, let us focus on the access of the children and their learning, easily measure the learning outcomes on a continuous basis, to know that the system is functioning, either to act themselves, but also to hold those who are responsible accountable, the schools, the government. If they don't have the information and understanding of how the system is functioning, they won't be able to demand what they deserve. And what they deserve is quality education of their children.
If they can't read, they can't count, how are we going to talk about analytical skills, critical thinking, all those other life skills they are supposed to acquire?
Helping to shift the focus on learning outcome, helping to shift the focus on how we spend our resources, by sharpening the debate on the types of policies and programs we need, that we will in fact have better learning, and in doing so, fulfill that promise for millions of poor people, that education in fact is liberation, that education in fact will help you have a much better life.